They waited way too long to say that Angel Reese said she's a damn back injury. Like, there's no way you can play with a back injury. Like, it's as simple as that. There's no like, oh, maybe I can play at a little bit of a slower pace. If you have a back injury, you have a back injury. But yeah, it's a... Look, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Angel Reese's injury was supposed to be the biggest story of the week, but what if I told you that's only half the drama? Behind the polished smiles and post-game interviews, the Chicago Sky are falling apart, players snapping at each other, silent treatment in the locker room, and even unfollows on Instagram. This isn't just bad luck, this could be the beginning of the end for the Sky's season, and maybe for Angel Reese's rookie fairy tale. And trust me, what's happening off the court might be even uglier than what's happening on it. When news first broke about Angel Reese's injury, the basketball world froze for a moment. The Chicago Sky had been clinging to playoff hopes, and losing their most marketable player in the middle of a tense season was a gut punch nobody saw coming. But here's the twist. What's happening off the court might be just as dangerous as her physical condition. The whispers are getting louder. This team isn't just injured, it's divided. And that's a storm the Sky might not survive.
The Chicago Sky are the most disappointing team in the WNBA this year. These Sky are no question about it. Like, they were meant to be good, or at least meant to be competent. I'm not saying they were meant to be this great team, but they're meant to be at least competent. And now you've got this Angel Reese injury, and things are not looking good. They're not looking good.
The exact details of Angel Reese's injury are still wrapped in mystery, but sources say it's more serious than the Sky initially let on. One moment she was driving hard to the basket, the next she was on the floor clutching her leg, grimacing as the crowd held its breath. Officially, the team is calling it day-to-day, but insiders whisper that medical staff are preparing for the possibility of weeks without her. That's not just a setback, that's a crisis when you're already barely holding on. But that's not all. The injury didn't just happen in a vacuum. In the games leading up to it, there were signs of strain, both physical and emotional. Reese had been logging heavy minutes, carrying the offense in stretches, and her body language screamed frustration. When a player feels they're being asked to do too much, too fast, it's not just the risk of physical breakdown that's dangerous. It's the mental toll that can seep into every interaction with teammates. This injury may have been the breaking point, but the tension was brewing long before.
This is the worst team in the WNBA right now. This Sky. With their injuries, I don't think I've seen a team with put out a worse team than this.
Coming into this stretch, the Chicago Sky weren't exactly in a position of comfort. Hovering around the bottom half of the standings, every game mattered, and every loss cut deeper. Reese's impact wasn't just about points and rebounds. She was a symbol of hope for a fan base that had been looking for a new hero since the departure of veteran stars. Without her, the Sky's offense looks flat, the defense sluggish, and the morale dangerously fragile. But it gets worse. What makes this moment even more precarious is that some players were already questioning the team's direction before the injury. There were whispers about uneven playing time, miscommunication on defensive assignments, and even a few subtle on-court gestures that fans caught on camera. The kind of side-eye moments that tell you not everyone's on the same page. Losing your star player can unite a team to fight harder, or it can expose all the cracks. For the Sky, it's looking like the latter.
I'm sorry. Angel Reese is pulling a pump fake to me, in my opinion.
Multiple sources have hinted that the Sky's locker room hasn't been a harmonious place this season. It's not open chaos, it's more of a cold war. Players avoiding eye contact, hushed conversations stopping when someone walks in, and little signs that trust isn't where it should be. In a sport where chemistry is half the battle, that's dangerous. And when a young star like Reese gets hurt, any simmering resentment can boil over fast. But it gets worse. One insider described a recent practice as tense and unusually quiet, with a few players noticeably frustrated during scrimmages. This isn't just about losing games, it's about personalities clashing. Veterans may feel overshadowed by the hype surrounding Reese. Younger players might feel she's getting special treatment. And now, with her out, those power dynamics are shifting in unpredictable ways. When winning isn't covering the wounds, the truth about team relationships starts to leak.
Guess what? Angel Reese is pulling a pump fake.
Angel Reese's shy Barbie persona has been a marketing goldmine. Jerseys, merch, and highlight reels have made her one of the most recognizable faces in the league. But when one player becomes the center of everything, interviews, sponsorships, social media buzz, it can create a silent divide. Some teammates embrace it, others resent it. And in a season like this, that divide is showing. But it gets worse. The problem is, when the cameras are on, everything looks fine. Smiles, high fives, and posed photos suggest unity. But behind the scenes, there's a growing feeling that the team is being built around the brand of Angel Reese rather than the collective identity of the Sky. That's not necessarily her fault, it's the nature of modern sports, but it doesn't make it any less toxic for team chemistry. Now that she's injured, the question is whether the shy Barbie era has been more of a distraction than a blessing.
And this back injury, the one that we didn't see happen, we saw Caitlin Clark's growing. We saw it twice. Both times against the Connecticut Sun, we saw this on camera, right? Why is it with Angel Reese we don't see these injuries? Didn't I tell you guys at the beginning of the season, I said, Angel Reese is going to pull a stunt.
With Reese sidelined, the Chicago Sky desperately needs strong leadership to keep the group focused. But here's the truth, nobody seems to be filling that role effectively. The coaching staff has been criticized for inconsistent rotations, and the veterans haven't stepped up in the way fans expected. Instead of rallying together, the team feels like it's splintering into cliques. But it gets worse. One particularly telling sign came on social media, where eagle-eyed fans noticed that certain teammates had unfollowed each other on Instagram. In today's world, that's not just a coincidence, it's a statement. Add to that rumors of heated exchanges in the team's group chat, and you've got the perfect recipe for mistrust. In sports, you can recover from a losing streak, but once the locker room loses faith in its leaders, the season is as good as gone.
Isn't it kind of funny that Caitlin Clark has no timetable of return as well?
The WNBA has been riding a wave of increased attention, but moments like this show how fragile that momentum can be. With Reese out and the Sky struggling, ticket sales have started to dip, merch sales tied to her image are slowing, and the corporate sponsors who invested heavily in her brand are reportedly monitoring the situation closely. That's PR speak for, we're nervous. But that's not all. It's not just about money, though that's a big part of it. When star power fades, media coverage shrinks, fan engagement drops, and suddenly the entire ecosystem around the team feels weaker. For a franchise like the Sky, which relies on a few big names to drive attention, losing their centerpiece is more than just a roster problem. It's a business crisis, and it adds another layer of pressure to a team that's already cracking. You can't talk about this situation without mentioning the media. Sports outlets and talk shows have turned Reese's injury into a soap opera. Every argument, every awkward moment, every sideline glare is being dissected in slow motion. And while some of it is speculation, the constant coverage is impossible for the players to ignore. But it gets worse. Social media has only made things worse. Clips from games are going viral with captions hinting at internal drama, and even harmless interactions are being spun into conspiracy theories. The Sky aren't just fighting to win games, they're fighting the narrative. And in today's sports culture, perception can become reality faster than anyone expects. Realistically, the Sky's playoff chances without Reese are slim. Even if she returns before the season ends, the team will have to navigate a brutal stretch of games against top competition. And with the locker room reportedly fractured, the odds of a Cinderella run feel more like a fantasy than a plan. But it gets worse. Analysts are split on the team's prospects moving forward. Some think the Sky can rally behind a next player up mentality, while others believe the internal rifts are too deep to repair this season. Either way, the clock is ticking. Every game without Reese is a step closer to the end of the road, and possibly a major shakeup in the offseason. At the end of the day, this is about more than just a leg injury. It's about how a team handles adversity, media pressure, and the egos that come with professional sports. Angel Reese didn't ask to be injured, and she certainly didn't ask to be the center of a storm. But here's the thing, she's now caught in a narrative that's as much about relationships and leadership as it is about recovery. The Chicago Sky have a choice. Use this moment to come together, or let it tear them apart. And for fans, the real question is whether this was all just bad luck, or a perfect storm waiting to happen. One thing's for sure, the rest of the season just got a whole lot more interesting. That's meant role players are being pushed into starring roles overnight, and not everyone is thriving under the spotlight. Players who were comfortable coming off the bench are now facing starters from elite teams, and the adjustment has been brutal. Fatigue is setting in, mistakes are piling up, and the pressure to keep the team afloat without Reese is wearing on their confidence. What's worse, this strain doesn't just show up on the stat sheet. You can see it in the body language, slumped shoulders after missed shots, hesitant passes, and a noticeable drop in energy during the second half of games. It's not that these players lack talent, it's that the psychological weight of knowing the team's fate rests on their shoulders can crush even seasoned pros. The longer Reese stays out, the more the team's internal dynamics shift. Players who step up in her absence may not be willing to shrink back into smaller roles when she returns. Others may resent the extra workload they carried without getting the same recognition or pay. That's how small tensions can turn into long-term grudges. And it's not just about minutes and stats, it's about identity. The Sky are being forced to redefine themselves without their star, and that process can either make them stronger or create a permanent divide. If Reese returns and the chemistry isn't there, the aftershocks of this injury could ripple into next season. For a team already struggling with behind-the-scenes drama, that's a dangerous possibility, and one the front office can't afford to ignore. One of the hardest parts of an injury like this isn't just the downtime, it's the uncertainty. Teammates don't know whether to plan for Reese's return or prepare for the rest of the season without her. Coaches are adjusting rotations week to week, unsure if they should build plays around her or find entirely new strategies. That kind of limbo can paralyze a team's rhythm. The uncertainty also eats away at morale. Players who thrive in consistent roles are finding themselves shuffled in and out of lineups, never sure when or how they'll be used. Meanwhile, Reese's rehab is happening behind closed doors, leaving only vague updates for teammates and fans. In professional sports, hope can be motivating, but when hope turns into guessing, it can fracture focus and leave everyone wondering if they're fighting for a lost cause. An injury to a leader like Reese doesn't just impact strategy, it hits players emotionally. Several Sky players have spoken about how strange it feels to take the floor without her presence. For some, she's a source of energy and swagger. For others, a calming influence in tense moments. Without that steadying hand, even routine plays can feel shaky, and close games can slip away in the final minutes. That emotional gap often shows up when the team faces adversity. In games where they fall behind early, there's no Reese to rally them with a clutch bucket or fiery huddle speech. Instead, frustration sets in faster, heads drop, and opponents sense the vulnerability. Basketball is as much a mental battle as a physical one, and right now, the Sky are fighting both without their most vocal warrior. If everything goes right, Angel Reese's injury becomes just a temporary setback, a story the team can look back on as the moment they came together. In this best-case scenario, she returns ahead of schedule, refreshed and more determined than ever, bringing an energy boost that electrifies the locker room. Younger players who gained experience in her absence could become more confident contributors, making the Sky deeper and more dangerous in the playoffs. But for that to happen, the Sky need to survive without her first. That means rallying together now, not waiting for Reese to be the savior. Best case thinking only works if the team's culture is strong enough to endure adversity, and that's where the next few weeks will be critical. If leaders step up, if the locker room unites, and if Reese's rehab progresses without setbacks, this injury could be remembered as the turning point, not the breaking point. On the other hand, the nightmare scenario is hard to ignore. Reese could be out longer than expected, the Sky could continue losing ground in the standings, and internal tensions could spill into public view. In that case, the team might limp into the offseason with big questions about coaching, leadership, and whether the roster is built to win. And for Reese, the media narrative could shift from promising rookie star to injury risk, which can hurt sponsorships and future contract negotiations. The worst-case outcome isn't just about missing the playoffs. It's about eroding trust between players and the organization. If teammates feel the front office mishandled the injury, or if Reese feels pressured to come back too soon, the fallout could last far beyond this season. Careers have been defined by how players and teams handle moments like this. The Sky are at a crossroads, and the next chapter will determine whether this was a bump in the road or the beginning of a long decline.